Welcome back to Morning Express, and well, today is Tuesday, and we take a look at your money. And of course, as we are winding down 2016, 2017 is about to begin, and as usual, this becomes a good point in time for us to take stock of our lives, and especially financial status. Now, the question that we're interacting with you on Twitter this morning is, what is it that you're going to do differently in 2017? When you reflect at 2016, when you look at where you're coming from in 2016, are there those things that you want to do differently? So this morning, what is it that you will do different in 2017? And joining me in the studio is Lennard Asher from Empowerment Resources Technologies, who is a life coach and also a business strategist. And we're talking about, well, making that difference, especially financially speaking. Now, before we took the break, Lennard, you explained how the brain works. And you mentioned that the reason why sometimes it's very difficult to go against the grain and to go against the habits that we have is because our brains form a path.
Correct.
Literally, I imagine it like walking on grass. And that grass wears out, and in that particular area where we have a path, it wears out. But like you mentioned, it becomes very difficult to go against that. How do we change that?
And in fact, if you look at it practically speaking, when you're walking in a field, you are naturally inclined to follow
A certain path.
The energy to create a new path is a lot of effort. So why do you want to bother with a new path? So it's the same thing with information. When it comes to your mind, it will just follow the old path that has been put in place. Creating a new, also I find that creating a new habit is a lot of effort, is an uphill task, and a lot of resistance. Now, understanding that, you don't work against the brain. You work with the brain.
With the brain.
The same way if you look at experts, aviation experts, they don't work against gravity. They work with gravity. Because you can't change gravity. It will pull the plane down. So what they do, they go back on the design, the shape, all the mechanics and the dynamics are designed to work with, not against.
Right.
Okay? So in the same way here, we can, that's why you find that a strong will and determination has often been overestimated. Many people are struggling.
Yeah, because when we are getting into New Year's resolutions, we really put our minds to this strong will.
Absolutely.
And of course, one of the most popular is to do with health, losing weight. You come in and say, starting the 1st of January, okay, maybe 2nd, because 1st is normally partying. But coming the 2nd of January, I will make sure that I eat right, I go to the gym, exercise, but that strong will doesn't last long.
Absolutely. You go to the gym, exercise, but the moment you get from the gym, you're hammering ice cream. You say life is lived once, man. And nobody's going to get out alive. So
one thing we guaranteed, none of us is coming out alive.
Absolutely, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So what happens that I think it will help us a little bit to understand how this brain, how the nature of how the brain puts information to help us a little bit handle the situation. The first thing I want to share, which is very important, is called the environment.
Okay.
The environment that under which those things are being done.
So as you're making your New Year's resolutions or whatever it is, take note of environment.
I'll give you an example. There's a reason why there's no grass in this studio.
Okay.
Okay? Let's look at the normal process of really working, of strategy and planning. Go out there with a goal. I want to go and bring grass. You go and bring grass from outside. You bring it here. That's work. That's effort. You're meeting your objective.
You put the effort to do that.
You
have a plan.
Bring the resources.
To plant the grass.
Bring the resources. Pour their water consistently in the morning. Pray if you can. It will also help. Chances are all those efforts are going to come to futility because you're putting the grass in an environment that doesn't support its growth.
Wow.
So even if you work hard, you plan, you put all the resources, you can even ask the water company to supply with a tank of water here to ensure that you have consistent water flow. Watering your plant on this table or on this floor. Those efforts will not come to fruition because the environment doesn't support what you're trying to do. But the same thing done outside will be another story.
Yes.
So sometimes you need to examine the environment under which we are making those decisions. Very, very key indeed. Sometimes the very environment that is prevailing in our mind and also our circumstances does not one way support what we want to do.
So let's take an example so that we can make this practical. This being where we talk about your money, how do I look at my environment if, for instance, I want to become a better investor to come 2017?
Suppose you're an investor. You see, at the end of the day, you can't invest the money you don't have. Before you begin investing, there must be some resources to be invested. So look at it this way, that if you don't have money to invest, it means your lifestyle consumes all your money. You have no surplus.
Whatever money you're getting in is being consumed in something.
So your lifestyle, the way you put your lifestyle, where you live, the car you drive, how you spend, they are all avenues for
waiting for money. To spend your money.
And remember, your income hasn't changed. Remember, the change of there has not changed nothing much. You're the same person moving.
The fact that we crossed into 2017 doesn't change your income.
Dispensation. You're going to have the same employer, maybe same level of income, but you have made a decision to become an investor. Unless you go back and you begin breaking the infrastructure that has been supporting your lifestyle, that decision and the environment you are creating is unsustainable as far as your objective is concerned. So you find that your money is going to come in, but you have a credit card to pay, you have a mortgage to pay, you have a house rent to pay, you have other things. So the gaps are still waiting. The money is just being absorbed. So you find that now after some time, when you sober up, you say, no, it doesn't work. So just give it up. But now a conscientious mind will have to go back and begin now looking for avenues that can release some resources for investment.
Where am I overspending?
Where am I overspending? Or
what can I
do
back?
Without?
Yes.
What can I do without? And you know, sometimes you're aware, you do this with many prominent personalities. What we don't see are the back scenes, the struggle,
behind the scenes,
the sacrifice that they go through to do certain things. But all we see is just this calm surface where things are happening. But people are going without, in fact. Some people even, their lifestyles are configured downwards. Make sure they have resources to take care of ABCD. Now, that withstanding, look at your associations. You cannot be an investor with spenders.
If your friends are people who take you out on Friday and spend all your money,
and sometimes
that is still part of environment,
exactly.
Right? The environment that
we
you're
tend to think that peer pressure is for teenagers. In fact, what is emerging that we grown-ups succumb to more peer pressure than the teenagers. So now, part of the environment are your associations. You can't be talking about investment, and none of your network is in investment. What are you investing? Because we learn by modeling. You are here, you are a consumer, a net consumer, with a network of consumers in a consuming environment where you are having deficits as opposed to a surplus, and you've made a resolution that you want to be an investor. You find that you are like that person who has just bought grass and put in the studio here, and he's so optimistic, I call it naive optimism. You are so optimistic, you are so driven, you are so motivated. You want the grass to grow. You even bring the water, you pour the water, you can even buy some manure, you bring the manure here in the studio, and your game plan is to make the plant grow. You can even be prayerful if you want, it can also help. But all those efforts will come to nothing. And along the way, you're going to encounter so much frustration, and you say it doesn't work.
Okay, because of environment. So number one thing you're saying, Lennard, is that if we're going to change our finances this coming year, we have to consider our environment.
Absolutely.
Okay, the friends that you have, according to what you've said, there's those friends that we have, there's the environment, the money that we have been spending. If we don't change our lifestyle, then we still become consumers. What other thing do I need to note as I'm making changes for 2017?
Another thing is that don't make big, massive changes, what we call quantum changes. You see, you have to put your change in manageable chunks, little progress. In fact, there's one of my mother tongue, my finest term is called kahora kahora.
Pole pole ndio mwendo in Swahili.
Kaleido, yeah. So you find that don't be so driven by so much ambition, which is not illogical, and just think you can do a drastic, massive change. Simple things. In fact, what has been proven over time, even in business, it's gradual changes that remain sustainably, that are sustainable and can always have far-reaching effect. So just start from standard one, because you've never been to school, yet you want to
graduate in university with a master's.
But they look at even how secular life teaches us. You can never be allowed to go to second year. You don't meet the requirements of first year. Or you can never be allowed to go to high school if you haven't done for primary school. There's logic behind it, because what you learn here is what supports the subsequent level of engagement. If you look in investment, they also call levels of investment, levels. And those levels, you can never play in level 6 if you're at below level 4. That's why you find that there are specific vehicles for particular type of investors. So if you've not been investing, chances are you're even below 0. So begin from kindergarten.
From zero.
From zero.
Okay.
Where it belongs.
All right, so small little changes.
Correct.
And how do I quantify those changes? Because what might be small for me might not be small for you. It might be, I mean, we are at different levels by all means and standards. So how do I make sure that they're small? How do I quantify them?
The smallness is not necessarily in terms of the resources, it's in the understanding. Because you could even be having a lot of money around you, but you don't have the practical aspect of it. And you find that should you start, you're going to get in trouble. So that's why you have to go on, you have to start from the fundamentals based on your resources, but also there's a lot of experts in the market. The challenge I see a lot in our environment that people are not keen on consultancy. On seeking information. There are people who call business to give you information. They don't necessarily have to use it themselves, but they have it for your consumption. So it would be a very good idea also for somebody to consider if I'm going to go in a particular field of investment, because it involves money, and money can disappear easily, but it's very hard to get. So you don't gamble. To me, I think it's important to take risks, and taking a risk means you're taking an informed decision. There's information behind your decision.
Your decision.
You're not gambling at the end of the day. So I think it would be a very good idea to consult. And as you're consulting, also consult people who have the expertise in an area you want to do in. I'll give you an example. You'll be surprised how everything looks really simple from a distance. Anything looks very simple. When you hear people are trading, you think it's just a matter of getting money from the bank. Go buy a product and
sell it at a profit.
When you hear about construction, people think it's a walk in the park. You just wake up, raise capital, buy a piece of land, and then build a house and sell it at a profit. You will find that people who have done that on emotions, they're mourning at this point. There's a lot of knowledge behind, there's a lot of information behind it. So if you're going to make a decision like that one, where a lot of money is involved, due diligence is very key. You need
do your homework.
Do your homework and thoroughly, extensively and thoroughly from all the stakeholders, and so that you can really understand. Because there's something you are told about money. You never delegate money. Even if somebody is helping you to invest, you don't delegate to him. You have to follow up, know what is happening. That's why you find that all these people you talk to most of the time, at the end of the day, they hold the last card. No decisions gets made without their consent or without their knowledge, and they investigate it, interrogate it before they give an okay. But naivety on many people is that in many people at the end of the day is that. And remember what I said about the environment that guarantees failure. It's purely an emotional exercise. You're just emotional. You're feeling excited, and you're just caught up in this mob psychology because it's just festivity around us. And then you say, I'm going to make this decision. And for sure, you could be meaning very, very well. But you see, your intentions are not the intention of the mind. Right. They are more of emotional. So you find that now you wake up and maybe you had some resources somewhere. You just go and without even thinking through the whole process. What I've learned over time is that someone says that choose your battles carefully. Don't fight losing battles.
Don't fight losing battles. Now, the next thing, of course, that I would want to know, and this is based on what you're saying, small little changes. How important is mentorship? How important is having somebody who can guide you, somebody who you can look up to in terms of now becoming a better investor or a better financially healthy person?
Thank you so much, Michael. Allow me to use a metaphor here. I call mentorship and coaching Google Map. Just as a metaphor. Just imagine in the past where you're going to a place you've never been to. Look at the time you spend.
Looking for the place.
You even pass it. Somebody tells you, oh, Nova, that place the other side. Then you drive, you get lost. Then you come back. You find that you go in circles simply because you don't have somebody guiding you.
You don't have some...
But now I equate a mentor, a coach, to Google Maps. Google Maps is very precise. It saves you time, it saves you money, and allows you to get where you want to get in comfort. Now, mentors, at the end of the day, are people who have gone through the journey that you want to go to. They have the experience, they have the knowledge, they have the wisdom, they have the insights, they have a lot of skills. It's basically a shortcut to success. What normally happens is people are able to guide you, and most mentors by nature want to make you better. So they want you to avoid their mistakes. So it is to your advantage at the end of the day if you can identify a mentor for anything you want to do to guide you the whole process. People who have had mentors at the end of the day are people who they'll make mistakes, but they make fewer mistakes.
They make fewer mistakes, and also you have somebody to guide you through a mistake that here you're going wrong.
Absolutely.
How do I identify a mentor? How do I find one? Because you'll agree with me that people are busy, and you'll find that if somebody is doing well in an area that I would probably want to do well as well, they may not have time for me. How do I identify one, and how does mentoring work? Do I have to sit for lessons with them? Do I have to have sessions with them? How does mentoring work?
Mentoring is not a very structured process like coaching. Mentoring is a very, very unique process. The good news that, of course, there are good mentors and bad mentors. And I think the hardest part of the whole process is getting a mentor. If you don't get a good mentor, of course, you have an uphill task. If you get a good mentor, of course, that means that you'll be able to enjoy the whole process. Now, what I tend to think that many people, there's a mentorship in title and there's mentorship in attitude. Many mentors actually leaders. And many people, they may not even tell you, but they get flattered when you tell them you want them to mentor you. It's a privilege at the end of the day. And anyone will tell you there's nothing as exciting as helping someone to make better of their life. So many mentors actually are more than willing to help. But however, mentorship does not necessarily, it's not a very structured process whereby somebody tells you, this is the formula. This is not a magic formula. As a mentee, you need to be very disciplined, very diligent, very focused, very alert, because some mentorship is not necessarily instructive. Sometimes you just observe someone doing something. Maybe you go on their first site visit and you just observe them,
how they work,
how they're doing their stuff. And you can get many insights from that whole process. Sometimes you may have a question that you want to ask them, and then they can also explain to you. Sometimes it's experiential, whereby they tell you, come and spend some time with me and see, maybe I'm going for a business meeting, come and see what happens there in the whole thing. The whole thing about mentorship, the onus is on the mentee, not on the mentor.
Right. It's on you to absorb.
It's the mentee that would dictate the relationship. When you show commitment, you show diligence, you show desire, your mentor is most likely one to help you much more. And also be willing to learn, because again, most of us are full of ourselves. We think we know. Somebody's want to mentor you, and you go to ask someone for direction, but you made a conclusion on what you want to do at the end of the day. And many mentors can feel that. It can feel you that you are just trying to assuage your conscience. Already you know what you want to do.
You already have decided which way you're going.
They'll let you go through the whole process, because at the end of the day, we learn better when you go through the whole process ourselves, but when maybe you make a mistake and blunder. But those who are humble enough, really pure humility, that you go to a mentor with an open mind, and you should demonstrate in attitude and in behavior that you want to be helped, you'll be amazed how much they can pour into you.
All right. Now, practical steps as to how now one can become better financially speaking come 2017. Do I start with a list? Where do I start from? Do I write down, this is what I would want to do? And does that writing down really help, especially if it's not practical or if it's not in those small little chunks that you've talked about? What is the correct method for me to now begin changing that path you talked about?
I may not necessarily have the correct message formula per se, but from what experts have taught us and you've observed over time, transformation rarely happens where there's no pain. Where
no pain, no gain.
This is discomfort, because what makes people want to change? Remember, at the end of the day, as human beings, we strive, we aspire, we want comfort. Why would you want to change a comfortable environment? Of course you wouldn't. If you're comfortable, you want to stay there. So, what makes somebody wants to change? One, they have to be very uncomfortable. They have to be not at ease. They must be feeling some internal pressure, sometimes very painful. That's why I find that in coaching we say, you don't coach somebody who's not coachable. Somebody who is having pain is very easy to coach, because they're running away from something.
They need an alternative.
Exactly, yeah. So at the end of the day, before we talk about this whole process, the person that wants to make a new decision in this year, he he has to evaluate their state of mind and their set of circumstances. If they're feeling comfortable and they're easy, there's no incentive for wanting to make a change.
So you have to want that change bad enough for you to make that change. How do I know that I want it bad enough? Because at the end of the day, like you've mentioned, it almost sounds like an oxymoron. I have to be uncomfortable. But none of us really is comfortable, fully comfortable with where we are, practically speaking. Because if it's finances, I want more. Regardless of how much I want, I may want more.
You'll be amazed my people are very comfortable. You'll be amazed. You see, sometimes we tend to transpose what we think on someone else. You see, have you watched someone and you wonder, goodness, get the hell out of that environment. What are you doing there? Nakwambia shida yako ni nini? Yeah, I'm cool.
I'm okay.
I'm cool. So what normally happens that the reason why growth is not very inclusive, not everybody really is geared to growth. Finally, most people are very comfortable. You are the one seeing the challenges. You're wondering, why can't he snap out of it? Why can't he or she try something different? They are at peace. They even tell you how they're happy, they're at peace. Now, unfortunately, that's called the Maxwell calls it the destructive zone, comfort. We get more destroyed in comfort. I'll give you an example. I think you've heard about this incident, that if you take a frog and throw it in hot water, chances are it will jump out. But if you take a frog in normal water and you begin boiling that water gently, slowly, chances are it keeps on adjusting to the temperature until it's too late. So compare the two scenarios. One scenario, somebody is just...
it's a sudden shock to the system.
Exactly. Now, what normally happens, if you look at all changes, whether personal or corporate, even in corporate, at the end of the day, people change when there's pain. Consultants, we always get called in an organization when there's trouble. You will never be called when a company is doing well. Never. Rarely when a company, they're making profits, things are doing very well, they'll never call you. They will call you for an intervention when there's a crisis. And usually because they're in pain, those interventions tend to work, naturally speaking. If you look at us human beings, a situation comes where you can't even sleep. Your situation, you're so uncomfortable. You're going to bed, you're tired, you can't sleep. Something is really eating on you. You try to concentrate, you can't concentrate. There's discomfort around you.
There's a pressure inside you that needs change. That's why sometimes we say those are very good indicators. This is a very good, the environment is trying to push you out. It's like a baby in the womb. You find that if things are normal, there's a time the baby won't come out because the time has not arrived. But the moment the time arrives, I'm told, the biological function, everything works against it. It becomes too uncomfortable for them to stay there. They have to
they've got to get out.
Right.
If the baby becomes comfortable, you're having two issues. You're going to have an infant death. Something has gone wrong.
Because the environment is no longer comfortable for them.
Exactly.
Okay.
But for them to come out, it's discomfortable inside there, so they get to come out. So it's the same thing, metaphorically speaking. We always come out of discomfort. There's discomfort around you is what induces or forces me and you to change. For example, personally, I'm in a very deep reflective mode because there are many things I'm not comfortable with in my life, in my business, that I really want to change. Now, 2 years ago, I didn't think like that because I was comfortable. But now I'm uncomfortable, and because I'm uncomfortable, I'm beginning to put in place mechanisms in place that will help me mitigate or minimize or eliminate this discomfort.
All right, so discomfort becomes one major indicator that it's time for you to move, and a facilitator. All right, now, once I'm uncomfortable or there's that discomfort, practically, how do I change my finances? And the job, like you said, that just the fact that we'll cross from 31st to 1st doesn't change my income one bit.
Absolutely.
What do I need to change?
Again, we go back to where we started from, Mike, that there's a system, in quotes, that has brought you to be where you are.
Which you call an environment.
An environment is how you are spending, your infrastructure, where your money goes, all those loopholes, all those channels are still intact. So just crossing over won't eliminate those channels. So now the first step, I think, which is very important for me, is I myself to look at the channels where my money is disappearing. where the things that are swallowing my money.
Consuming that money.
And some of them are very drastic, depending on how painful your situation is. I've seen people who even change addresses. You see, some of these things, when you're going to do them, you are no longer under peer pressure. You're no longer under impressions.
Or rather, the pressure, the internal pressure is over the peer pressure. Because you might still be under a lot of pressure, but you get to a point where you say, I live in this area because I want to look good to my friends, but they don't know the pain that I'm going through. Yeah,
I've seen, there's a gentleman I think I respect very, very much. We had a discussion. He basically was in a kind of a bind. But the challenge was that he was a person who had put his life way above his ability. The car he was driving was beyond his ability. One in terms of acquisition, maintenance, and other expenses. His wardrobe was shopping in places he couldn't afford. He was staying in a place he couldn't. What was more about image. So we had a very frank discussion. He said, you know something? I don't think I can do that a car for now. I'm going to take this car back to the dealership and reconfigure my loan. Now, that's a very bold man, very bold. And in the process, of course, the girlfriend left.
So those are some of the pains that you'll have,
exactly.
the price that you'll have to pay.
Then this gentleman, actually, to my amazement, he literally relocated from a 80,000 rent to a 20,000 rent. Okay? When I met him, after those decisions, I've not seen a man that happy. He said, I have found myself. I'm free. So you must commend that kind of a person, that the whole process was not just intellectual, it was much deeper than that.
There's an emotional connection to it that...
And he began making decisions. He had to look at things that had to be done, that he felt... You see, the challenge with the financial challenge is that, like someone said, that when you are digging a hole, when you find yourself in a financial mess, you don't get out by continuing to dig. So that means if I'm in trouble financially, more borrowing won't help me. Because the fact that I'm borrowing already means I'm in a crisis. So you don't solve a borrowing problem by borrowing. Are you together? So you're already digging a hole. So you need to find a way of making that hole shallower.
Right.
And sometimes there are some things, some things are that easy to change. Some are not easy to change. But the key thing which I tell people is that it doesn't matter. Like, and I like this Chinese proverb, that if you don't change direction, you are headed where you're going.
You'll end up there.
Exactly.
All right. Lennard, we'll have to wind it up right there because of time. And thank you very much. But I think we've got the concept. Environment is a key player if you're going to change your circumstances, especially financially. No quantum changes. In other words, one step at a time. Bite what you can chew. Because of time, we'll have to wind it up right there. This is the end of Morning Express.